morning. Welcome to Politics is Power.
Hi, I am Aisha Dew, and I'm chair of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party, and I'm here today at the African American Caucus Unity Coalition Cookout, and it's been a great day. We've had the senior Democrats, the Hispanic American Democrats, the Young Democrats, all the different organizations in Mecklenburg County, and I've even seen some African American caucus members from other counties, so this is a great day. This is exactly what we need to move into this election cycle, because we need to have everyone work together. Everyone who's a Democrat or an independent who's Democratic leaning, or a Republican who would even like to change his affiliation to Democrat and really join the party and support our effort. So this year we need for everyone to be engaged and to support from the White House to the courthouse.
Thank you so much for joining us today with Politics is Power. And I'm your host, Rosa Garvin. And today we're going to have a forum, a roundtable of discussion. Basically, we're going to be discussing what's going on in 2012 and how it's going to affect our community. We have today Sylvester Fleming with the African American Caucus. He's the president of the Mecklenburg chapter. And we have Rashida Hanson. She's the president and of the board of directors of A Brighter Day Ministries. And of course, we have a regular on our show, Ashley K. Blue, co-founder of The Friendship Inc. So, again, we're having our roundtable discussion, and my first question is going to be directed at you, Ashley. How can we encourage minorities and young people to come out and vote in 2012 in Mecklenburg?
There's a lot of ways we can do that. The first thing is just energizing the younger population of Mecklenburg County right now, and I think this is a nationwide trend where the youth right now, we're unemployed by a large bracket, and we have student loans piling up, and there's no way to pay them down with the job market looking the way that it is. So we have to find a way to invest the interest of the youth into tying that into this election and making it worth their while. But right now it's just the momentum has not picked up, I think, because of the economy. Mostly you can blame the economy for pretty much anything right now, I think, for the most part. So
okay. Rashida, what do you think?
I think that part of the drive to get the youth more involved would be really to help them understand how much of a stake they have, regardless of who is elected in 2012. I think the real challenge is to make sure that they feel like they have a stake, they have an ownership in what happens beyond 2012, because they are the future leaders, and while the economy may not necessarily be as strong, it is improving, but they do have a lot of the skills that are necessary to bring about that innovation to help create jobs. If you look at historically over the last 10 years, a lot of college students have been responsible for actually creating some of the more innovative technologies that have been out there. So I think re-encouraging them to let them know that, number one, their vote and their voice is important, but also that they have been building skills over the last 12, 16 years through their education process that is needed out there to help be part of the solution. And with that, the more that candidates actually engage in those particular conversations, then the more that they will feel as though that they can have a stake in ownership.
Okay. Sylvester, what do you think?
Well, first thing I always believe, it goes back to education. A lot of the youth right now are feeling like politics is something that their parents are a part of, and they're being left out. There's no relevance that's being brought to the youth. Look at their issues. Listen to what they're saying. Right now, they're looking for a voice. That's the reason Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media has really taken charge, and they've gone on to do their own things. Right now, what we have to do is, we look in 2008, the one thing that set President Obama away from everybody else was social media. He took over the youth vote. Why? Because it made it relevant for them. Right now, we have issues, and what we do, we try to solve the issues for them and tell them what they need to do, versus going to the situation where we say, what are the issues? What are the problems? and you can have not only a say, but have a part of the solution. Anything that we do with the youth, we have to make them a viable part of the solution. And right now, most of the time, in politics right now, the youth are the one in the back that's, well, you can go out and walk the street and hand out something, or you can go in the back and make a phone call, but they never feel that they're part of the actual solution. Saying, well, we see an issue, we go to school to problem solve. Here's a problem that we want to help solve. No longer look at me as the pawn on the board. Give me a back row, as a chess player would say. Give me a power piece that we can make a difference. And if we make a difference, we will start seeing more and more of us come to the forefront. Because anytime that they feel they have an answer and they push to the back, they feel that they're not needed in that area. And right now, we need to tell our youth that they are needed. They are the future. They are the next step of the evolution of our party. And once we let them know that no longer is it us versus them, we're in this thing together, and we're willing to listen and follow some of those steps that they want to take, you'll see them start to come forth, and you see more youth being a viable option to the process.
And I want to piggyback off of what you said, Sylvester, because there are a lot of young people who are involved both in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party that are not being tapped for their ingenuity. And I think that's a big mistake on everyone's behalf. One of the reasons why 2008 was so successful in youth turnout was because students and young people alike were offered a unique opportunity to be involved in the political process where they weren't offered that before. And they staked a claim there, and people like myself, we were able to get our foot into the political game, and now we're still there. And I think it would behoove the parties to make sure that they're tapping those people for more than just those simple asks of, like you were saying, making the phone calls, going out in the street, recruiting more students. You know, we have to give them a chance to work on these policy efforts, and then maybe we'll be able to get a little bit more out of them.
And one thing I like to say as well is we need to change the paradigm of how we think about politics. It's a life cycle politics.
Right.
Right now, you cannot ask a 21-year-old to do the same thing as a 65-year-old because they're in the process of trying to get jobs, trying to support their families, if starting the families. A 40-year-old now has children in school. So their time restraints are different. So what we need to be doing is starting to motivate, educate, and build up so that they have pieces and parts where they're not overwhelmed, not burnt out, but they feel that they're a vital part or a piece of that cog to get politics done. So once they raise their family, get their families through their process, not out of the way, but through their process, then they also have the experience from the past to be able to step right into position. What we have right now, we have a big disconnect. We have those individuals who have raised families and they've moved on. Now they're coming back to help their communities. And you have those individuals who have yet to start families. But when you look at the individuals who are right in the process where most of the policies affect, they don't have the time, or they don't have a place where they can input and also raise a family, or also go to work, or also start a business, or also be involved with their youth, that they can feel that they have a vital impact on what's going on right now.
Right.
Okay. All right, Marcia, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that covered it.
All right. Now let me ask you guys a question. Sylvester, this is for you. How do we create excitement in our communities, especially across the board, not only with students, with seniors, because you have so many people when you ask them a question about voting. My vote doesn't count. I voted in the last election. I'm just not interested. I'm burnt out based on things that are being said in the media. How do we create that same excitement that we had a few years ago?
Excitement, to me, and I'm using my own definition, this is not a Webster by any means, but excitement to me starts with actual change.
Yeah.
When people start to see things moving, they want to be a part of something. They want to see things moving. They hate sitting in rooms and having the same conversations and the same issues and the same things that their parents were talking about, and realizing, well, I'm going to be here another 15, 20 years talking about the same issues. It's just like a car. When you sit in a car, there's more excitement when the wheels are moving. And when you was a child, you sat back there and you turned the wheel and the car would go nowhere. The first time you were 15 and you got behind the wheel in driver's ed and that car went down the street, you were excited about it. The same thing happens here in politics. The moment that we're moving and we actually pick something and make a difference, there's a change that happens. People get excited about that. Like in Amendment 1, people are excited about Amendment 1 because on May 8th, something's going to change. Right. And people are excited about that because right now, we're no longer just sitting in a room talking. We have action that's going on. action builds excitement. In 2008, there was excitement because there was action. People were out walking the streets. People were on their phones talking with people. People were on social media, so they saw things that were happening, and they said, hey, we're finally moving. Change is coming. There is no longer this stagnant relationship of just talking.
Right.
And as soon as we start doing something, people get excited about that. I don't know about you, but when I'm out with the kids, and I'm at a baseball game, and nothing is happening, we sit there, yeah. As soon as somebody gets hits and run down the base, people are excited. Lord knows the Bobcats, if they win, we are excited about them winning.
Lord.
And so what happens, we're excited about movement. Youth are excited about movement. The individuals that are in the middle stage are excited about movement. Even our seasoned politicians are excited about movement, because everyone has sat there and everyone has heard the conversation. They want the action. And once we bring that action, you will see more people come to the fold, because they don't feel that it's the same old thing, just a different day.
Sheila, what do you think?
Well, a couple of words come to mind when you say create excitement. For me, I tend to think of it in terms of the importance of education and relevance. So when you take a political process that naturally has highs and lows, and excitement by nature is this perception of a high all the time, which is not the case, then when you can educate a constituent or a voter on how a specific policy might impact their child's education, or the funding that would go directed towards a particular school or a district, or how the impacts of decisions that a county commissioner might make will impact their day-to-day life, then that creates a natural connection. That creates something that's relevant to them at that particular point in time, because there are so many issues that candidates are responsible for having platforms to talk about, but it doesn't necessarily mean that an individual as a voter will be able to tune in to all of them. So creating that connection by making something that's actually relevant to their day-to-day life gives them the ability to kind of stimulate that question, and when you become more curious about something, then that creates the excitement. And studies have shown that when you take things that you're not necessarily familiar with, but you begin to educate and learn more and more about, then that creates an excitement for someone. So through education and through relevance, then that is going to create that need, that push, which is sometimes termed excitement in politics, to get that person to turn out to the polls, to vote on something that is relevant to them. So that's the way I see it.
Ashley?
I think both Sylvester and Rashida hit the nails on the head. I think excitement comes in a twofold process. It starts with the individual, and then from there you get a group. So you have to get that individual to feel invested in the process and find out what is it about what issue that's going to direct me. How's this hitting my pockets? How's this affecting my neighborhood? What is my mother going to have to change to make sure that the lights are still on? Things like that are what gets an individual to invest into it themselves, and then from there you get your group momentum, and that's how we push into the communities and actually start to see real change happening. But just going back to what Sylvester said, I can speak on behalf of the youth of the world and tell you we're tired of talking. We're over the conversations. I don't want to go to no more forums. I don't want to have no more meetings. We're still having the same discussions, and this is honest to God truth, no exaggeration, that we've been having since the 60s, and especially in relation to urban youth, black youth. It's a continuous cycle, and I think once we all agree that, hey, there's something more, let's just come to that consensus and get out and get whatever it is done as a group, then we're going to see some forward movement that we haven't seen in a while. And I think we tapped on that in 08, but we stopped. We got the first black president, and then it was just like, okay, we're good. But that's not it, because in the next 4 years, Barack will be gone. And then what? So we have to look ahead, and we have to, make sure that we're preparing for that.
Okay, since you brought that up, let's talk about life after President Obama. How is this new generation of voters going to stay involved?
That's a good question, and I'm interested to see what the Democratic Party has to say about that, because there are people who were specifically invested in the political process because of President Barack Obama. There's no way to get around that. It's a unique challenge to find that candidate that upstarts a nation the way that he did, and I don't think we'll see anything of his caliber for a while, unless maybe Jesus will decide to run when he returns. But, I really think that's about as close as we'll get. Like that guy, he is the end all be all as far as the politician. So finding another unique candidate is a stretch. So I feel like we're gonna have to go back to the basics of how do we get people involved with the issues, because there's not anyone to galvanize you. Like, one of the interesting things that I have to deal with Amendment 1 is we don't have a candidate. So there's nobody to look to and say, and I'm fighting for him, and that gets me excited. I just have to know I'm fighting for families, and that's enough to get me up in the morning. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to have to turn back to, that, look, we might not have, the guy who's going to make me want to put a picture on my wall of him, but this is what we're fighting for, and if we can draw it back to that, then we'll have some success.
Okay, Rashida?
Wow, that is a really great question. When I think about when the president ran, and continuously he said, we have work to do. He didn't say, I was going to make all of these things happen. He said, I need your help. He also mentioned that it's going to take more than 4 years, probably more than 8 years, to correct a lot of the behaviors and policies that kind of severed the middle class in a lot of ways, and then put the lower economic individuals in an even tougher spot. So when I think about the continuation of the movement, I don't believe that, number one, everyone is going to get it, but it's not for everyone to get. That's just how it works in general. But I do believe that there are enough individuals, like an Ashley Blue, like a Sylvester Fleming, who heard what he said, and who heard the words and studied the words of other individuals like Frederick Douglass and John F. Kennedy, and so many other founders of this thought process that really recognizes that we are one. We are bigger than the blues and the reds and the team on this side and the team on that side. But we have this fundamental connection that makes all of us dependent on one another. And you see that when you have natural catastrophes. For a moment, it brings everyone together. Mm-hmm. But then that moment, that immediate connection, sometimes is lost. But there are enough people who remember that I am connected to an Ashley, and I am connected to a Sylvester. So I firmly believe that by taking kind of the ideology and the practices of community engagement that the president used, which leveraged social media, but it was really more along the lines of the messaging. So right. Even if social media were not a factor, I still firmly believe that because he spoke from a place of trueness and a place of open-mindedness that was willing to embrace all ideas, that's what people immediately connect to. So I don't think that it will take a second coming, but I do believe that there are enough young people out there that heard and are continuously actively working to make sure that what he started will continue regardless.
Okay, Sylvester, what are you going to do after Barack?
Well, the thing that I'm looking at is there's a term that was coined, at-risk youth. And I think we are at an at-risk process when we look at what we are. It took certain circumstances to get President Obama in the office. Mm-hmm. The country was at its lowest point, where we were at the point where politics aside, we needed to get the best person, period, in the office. Now, there were some wins and some losses during the first part of the presidency. Not on his side, because he did what he needed to do, but on the local side, I think we were lulled to sleep saying, we got the right guy in office. But that right guy in office was like an umbrella, supposed to protect us so that we can do what the work that was needed on the ground. And a lot of us got comfortable not working. A lot of us got comfortable knowing that we had the right person there, so it doesn't matter what I do or what I don't do. I think life after President Obama is now, President Obama is a seed. He was planted. He planted the right things in process for us to do. But any seed that doesn't get watered, that doesn't protect from the weeds, that don't go out there and mature and protect around that seed, will be lost. So I think life after President Obama begins us educating our youth, building up the next leaders, not starting federal, but starting local, because you cannot be a federal leader if you're not a local leader. And you can't be a local leader if you're not a leader in your home. So what we have to do is start reaching out to our youth and teaching them how to be the right type of men and women first, then the right type of community leaders, then the right type of political leaders, and then they can be the state leaders, then the national leaders. So life after President Obama is where we need to really get to work. The issues that he has right now in Washington, D.C. is, but not that what he's doing, he doesn't have the right support from Congress. The reason he doesn't have the right support from Congress is because we didn't do what we needed to do locally to put the right people in place so that he can take that vision that we all voted for in 2008 and make it happen. So life after President Obama starts with us moving now and not waiting for the next 4 years and say, oh, what we're going to do now. In the next 4 years, we need to have a person in place to take that position.
All right.
So we don't have to say who we're going to elect after President Obama. Well, President Obama did his job. Let's give him a hand. And guess what we have? We have President such and such coming in to keep that legacy going. No man is greater than a vision. He put the vision out there, and we as a nation have to continue growing that vision, have to continue fighting for that vision, have to continue educating for that vision, have to continue sacrificing for that vision. The moment that we put ourselves above a vision is the moment that that vision dies. The moment that we give one person more than what the cause is the moment that cause go with that person when they leave office. I commend everything that President Obama has done, but I think if we let his vision die when he leaves office, he'll figure that his presidency was a failure. So we have to continue working, fighting, and making not only him proud, but everyone who sacrificed to get him to that point proud that that seed has been planted. We caught the message. We caught the work ethic. We caught what we needed to do to change not only the next 4 years, but to change the way that stuff is done here in America forever. Because right now, if you look, since 1999 to recently, America was in a backslide. We had better jobs in 1999 than we did in 2006. Families were living a better lifestyle in 1999 than they were in 2006. We had less people dying at war in 1999 than we did in 2006. We were more confident in 1999 than we were in 2006. Now, he took office in 2008, and that was roughly over 10 years he had to try to build back. We are not even that even yet, but he's been coming back as much as possible. And he even said up front, it's going to take us more time. So right now, we have to put that time in. We have to give that commitment. And I think after President Obama, we have so much more work still to do.
That's true. Well, how are we going to reach out to our local government and local folks to get them engaged? That's the key, I think, obviously, because so many people have fallen asleep. So how are we going to reach out to them and get them engaged? That's
our leaders or our people?
Our people.
That's a good question. I mean, you have to go to them, you have to talk to them, and it's really a matter of finding out what matters most. I mean, important issues change over time, you know, where it might be jobs now, but it might be something else later. So we really need to go and make sure that we're going into our communities and finding out what is it that you want to see most, and what is the thing that needs to change immediately for you to feel like we're making progress. You know, what's the first thing that you want to see change? If it's, you know, environment, does that mean you need to see your light bill go down by $30 before you believe that we're doing it? Like, what is it? And I think if we can find that key, then we'll be on track for something.
And piggybacking on what Ashley just said, I think it's fundamental. We look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you look at a person and they can't pay their light bill, are they really thinking about anything other than paying their light bill?
Right.
If they can't put food on the table for their family, are they really thinking about anything more than putting food on the table for their family? We as an organization have to look at the needs of our people first, and they will come to the needs of the community. But the moment that we ask the person who doesn't have a job, who doesn't have any way of getting around, and we ask them to volunteer, are we truly paying attention to their needs? Are we trying to use them like so many other people have in the past? We need to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's look at the needs first. Then we can go from the personal needs to the family needs to the community needs, and then we step up to the state and then the federal needs. And the moment that we put our people first, they will have a place in their heart to always be there when we need them.
I agree. Sheeta?
I believe keeping the conversation at the community level. So often, especially over these last 4 to 6 years, where the conversation can have a tendency to include politics, then sometimes when you include the word or the term politics, then it's a natural turnoff for individuals, because one of the common phrases that I hear is, well, I'm not involved in politics.
Right.
And so the education process around how can you say you're not involved in politics when you're driving? Or, there are unemployment laws, and those are directly tied to, politics. The connection, being able to really educate individuals on, you might not be a politician, but every aspect of your life is somehow influenced or impacted by policies that are put in place. And so part of the conversation is really to help bring about that education, that awareness, and then going back just to making it relevant to the individual, where they are. Like Ashley said, you meet people where they are. Strip away exactly what your personal agenda or your employed agenda might be, and really have a conversation with an individual as an individual, not representing a specific office or a specific candidate or a specific legislation.
Okay. Well, our time is almost up. Enjoyed it. Rashida, thank you for coming. Ashley, thank you for coming. And Sylvester, thank you. We will be coming back again for another forum, and we want everyone to know that we do appreciate you viewing our show. If you have any questions, certainly you can email us. Politics is Power. Check out our web presence there. Politics is Power. And again, thank you for joining us and for our table discussion. And again, everybody, what is going on here? Politics is what?
Power.